Okay, so what did we achieve here? Let's recap what we have done. So we said there are so many class C materials that we need to order every day, every week. These are non essentials, not like coffee or pastry. Low value, non essentials. And we said instead of ordering these things every day, every week, it's a hassle. So we're going to say, I'm going to allocate a budget, a fixed budget, because I know it's going to cost so much for the week or 2 weeks. And for that budget, $20,000, I could order anything that the vendor can supply. If the vendor supplies stationery, I like the price, I'll go for that. If the vendor supplies pens or pencils or papers, I'll go for that. If the vendor supplies cartridges or printer supplies, I'll go for that. All class C materials, right? And step number one, create a blanket PO. To create a blanket PO, the order type is FO, framework order. And the item category is B. And you always have to have an account assignment. Why? Simple. These are non-stock materials. You're not going to stock them. There's not going to be a MyGo. And you specify a limit because this is of item category B, right? B means limit. And what is limit? You specify that the upper limit is 20,000, which means you're going to allocate a budget of 20,000 and the company can order anything, basically all class C materials, until the limit of 20,000 is reached. And of course, this gets shipped over to the vendor. The vendor looks at the PO, files it in his cabinet, and anytime you want something, you can just call the vendor, and the vendor will just ship them over, right? Basically, the goods, and you don't have to do a MyGo. Small supplies, right? Why waste your time or inventory management? No MyGo. Then he'll send an invoice, and that you file. So you go do a Miro invoice receipt, and over there you specify the amount and some text that identifies what has been supplied, some marker, that you can remember later. And the amount that has been invoiced will automatically be adjusted or marked in the limit of the purchase order. So the purchase order history will be updated saying, hey, you have consumed $1,000 out of your 20,000. This is the process of a blanket purchase order. So let's compare this with a standard purchase order. In a standard purchase order, so if you were to do the procurement of these small consumables using the standard PO method, what would you do? Anytime you're out of supplies or you're going to be out of supply in a couple of days or weeks, you create a PO. It could be against a cost center or it could be not against a cost center if you want to show your stock. And depending on what kind of purchase order you have created, you do a GR directly against the stock or directly as a consumable. And you do an IR and settle the invoice. You see, you have to create, you have to do a GR, you have to settle the invoice, right? If you were to do it using the blanket purchase order, how would things be different? Well, you'd create a blanket PO and you would only do this once for, let's say, a month or 2 months or 2 weeks, depending on what kind of leeway you want to give for these products and the people ordering those products. If you trust the people very well, you could just say, hey, you know what? Here is 20,000. That's it. Deal with it. So you don't have to create the PO every time you're out of cups. You can just call the vendor and say, hey, I need 100 cups or 1000 cups. And how is he going to deliver them? Through the same truck, but no goods receipt. He's going to give those cups directly to you. Just go use them. You don't have to receive them into the goods, blah, blah, blah. None of those steps. So you save a lot of time there. So you save time here by not having to create a PO every time. You save time here by not having to do a goods receipt and involve the warehouse folks. And the invoicing process stays the same. So the vendor does send an invoice, and you could settle the invoice maybe in one go or maybe two invoices in one go. Right? So you save time here. You can even simplify the invoicing process, but that's something that we don't want to really bother about. That's for FI folks to do. The point being, you also save time here. And the blanket PO tells you how much you have consumed out of your total allocation of, say, 20,000 or 100,000. So the purpose of a blanket PO is to simplify the procurement of Class C